Yes, sir.
This is to introduce the AIS SART. The SART, S-A-R-T, is familiar to every mariner. This is used in search and rescue operation when a vessel is in distress. When a situation comes where the ship is not safe anymore, the commander or the captain of the vessel or the master of the vessel decide that the persons on board are no longer safe on board that vessel, he will decide to abandon the vessel. At that moment, the people on board, the crew members on board, will have to disembark from the vessel either to a survival craft or a lifeboat or a life raft. And in such situation, there is an equipment called search and rescue radar transponder, which was in conjunction with an X-band radar, which is operating on a search and rescue, or a vessel or an aircraft which is involved in the search and rescue operations. And such SART is always being carried down to that survival craft by the ship's personnel or the designated person for that particular equipment. And this is to be operated when you are on board that life raft and when you are sure that someone is approaching you for the rescue. And the purpose of this equipment is to locate the vessel or the craft which is carrying these survivors in case of low visibility or and such severe weather conditions where the approaching aircraft or the vessel, it is difficult to identify the craft or to locate the craft or the survival craft. And such a situation, once you switch on this search and rescue transponder, it will transmit the signals on the X-band frequency, and it will be detected ideally by a 12 nautical mile range of an X-band radar. But as per the new regulations, slowly we are changing over to the search and rescue radar transponder based on AIS technology. And the main difference, appearance wise, both looks almost the same. AIS SART or normal conventional SART will look same. But the operational frequency itself, there is a difference because the other one operates in the X band, and whereas this will be in the VHF band of radio spectrum. And this equipment, if you see, it is very similar, and as an end user, you don't have to do anything on this equipment when you receive a new equipment. It can be installed in the same location where a conventional SART was installed. And the operation is also very similar. And here you have two buttons given. And these buttons are, one is for the testing purpose, which as per SOLAS or IMO, it recommends certain, or it's mandatory to do certain tests weekly, and thereafter monthly it is to be tested and recorded in your logbook. And there is another button provided for the actual activation. And actual activation, there is a pin provided, it's a safety pin to avoid accidental activation of such accidental activation of the SART. And same switches are provided in the AIS SART also. And the difference here is this SART, when it is supplied, the AIS SART, when it is supplied by the manufacturer, there is a 9-digit MMSI number which is starting with a 970, and that will be provided by the OEM to the end user, which will be pasted on the SART as a label, and this is just to identify that particular SART. So as an end user, you don't have to do any programming or any calibration, anything on this AIS SART. So you can install that in position, and the normal test what you are doing for a normal SART, the same thing it can be continued on this AIS SART also. The main difference is that in a normal conventional SART, it will be detected, as I mentioned earlier, it will be detected by an X-band radar, whereas this will be detected by an automatic identification system which is always in on position on all vessels as per regulations. So the advantage is that especially when out at sea, in the open sea, even if your X-band radar is switched off. So most of the occasions it may happen that if it is, ideal conditions and not much traffic around, the X-band radar may not be on. In such cases also, your AIS will be continuously on once you are out at sea. So it can be recorded in the AIS, and that signal can be identified by the navigating officer that someone is transmitting or someone is in distress and they need the help or they are in a survival craft, and that AIS will provide you the bearing and direction of the survival craft, so that the aircraft or the vessel which is approaching the survival craft can easily reach, or they can navigate towards that survival craft and rescue the survivors. So the chances of getting better support or from aid from the search and rescue authorities, this AISR will enhance that, because it is always operating on the VHF frequency, and it can be detected by any AIS even if the X-band radar of SAR vessels are in off condition. And this can be detected by about 10 nautical miles. And if you keep this one, because there is a pole provided which is extendable, and that is not shown here, but that is provided along with the AISR, and if you can keep it as high as possible, the more you keep it high, the range will increase. It can be detected from a more distance, and an helicopter which is flying at 1,000 feet altitude, this can be detected even up to 40 nautical miles, and the fixed wing aircraft, if it is moving about 20,000 feet altitude, that can detect up to it can be detected beyond that also. So these are all the advantages of AISR, and the main advantage is that there is no separate familiarization or training required with respect to keeping this AISR on board or operating it or testing this equipment. So basically this is something which is enhancing the safety of life at sea compared to conventional SAT which is prevailing on board. And the only important point is this will not alert in case of a distress. It will not alert the shore or any authorities. This is to be switched on only if you are sure that someone is approaching, because this battery provided in this equipment has got a life, and the system can operate only up to 96 hours. So do not switch on this SAT until and unless you know that someone is approaching, because if you switch it on as soon as you abandon the vessel, by the time someone approach for a search and rescue operation, so for your help, by that time the battery will get exhausted and the equipment will become inoperational. So this is very important. One thing, you have to keep the equipment as high as possible if you know that an aircraft or a ship is approaching for your rescue. And second part is, do not switch on this equipment unnecessarily. That means only when you know that someone is approaching for your help. That's all. Thank you.